You're watching Oilers Nation every day with Tyler Yaremchuk. Your one-stop shop for all things Oilers.
Whew, what a beauty by Connor McDavid in overtime. He made those two Blues players look really stupid. Who were they? Oh, that's good. Let's get into it with the lead. And way to chase the payday, boys, and then have to chase Connor McDavid around the ice in 3-on-3 overtime. Oilers win! Victory edition of the show. Welcome into Oilers Nation every day, coming to you live from the Sports Closet studio. You can check them out online at sportscloset.ca. The show is a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Tyler and Liam with you. It is a Sherwood Ford Giant Game Day edition of the show. Jay's going to be by in a little bit. That was a little weird.
Why?
Frank's also going to join us.
Can't be excited about things?
Hey, I'm fired up. That was a big dub by the Oil.
That was a great win by the Oilers. It should have just been 1-0, potentially an empty net goal to give it 2-0, but the St. Louis Blues were assisted by the officials, to say the least. Honestly, we'll get into it, but it drove me nuts.
We will. There is honestly a wide range of topics that we are going to talk about today on the show. Let's start, though. We got a couple of super chats.
Super chats.
Again, all of our super chats go to the Ben Stelter Foundation. Very excited to be partnering up with them. I mean, if you guys are going to be generous with your money, drop it in the YouTube. What other charity should we support? They do great work at the Ben Stelter Foundation. Shout out to the Stelter family. Minister dropped in $2 and said, is Johnny Craig and Connor Brown the same person? I don't get the reference.
I don't know who Johnny Craig is. Let's
all right.
have a look.
Well, or we just move on. I don't know. Is that the guy who played Ron Weasley?
Oh my good God. No, it's Rupert Grit is his name. Grit or something like that was Ron Weasley. Okay, this is the guy. I mean, minus the tattoos.
Yeah, but who is that?
I think he's a rapper.
Johnny Craig on Life After Rehab and Staying Sober.
Yeah, well, no, they're not the same person, but thanks for the super chat.
Yeah, sure. €2.
€2?
Okay.
That's a pound.
Our friend Original Posar's in. Love when he joins the show live. He says, that tying goal gave me the feels in all the right places, and McDavid looks like he's on the verge of a supernova stretch. Chicago beware. Would like to see 97 and 18, McDavid and Hyman, and 29 and 53, Draisaitl and Skinner as pairs, but it won't be tonight. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, actually. First off, thank you for the $20 donation. Going to a great place. I'll talk more about what I want to see from the line combos later on in the show, but I agree with you on the fact that McDavid is on the verge of a supernova stretch. He had himself a hell of a hockey game last night. And Liam, let's not waste any more time. Let's get into the scoring summary from last night's hockey game, brought to you by our friends at Service Credit Union. The Service Big Share Contest is back, and it's your chance to win $1 million just by saving money. Every $500 you save gets you 5 entries into the Service Big Share Contest. You can fast track your savings with a high yield savings account. Invest in a GIC. It all goes to get you entries into the Big Share Contest, which ends on April 30th, 2025. Skill test required. For rules, visit service.ca/win. The Edmonton Oilers in the second period on a power play. But before I get to that goal, we talked yesterday about how the Oilers need to be better in the first period. They were amazing in the first period. 13-3 are the shots. Skinner was good when he needed to be, although not tested all that much. In the first period, the shot attempts were 27-11 in favor of the Edmonton Oilers. High danger shot attempts, 9-2.
I think they only finished with 2 shots on goal in the first period. The Blues, 3. So 2 of those 3 were high danger.
Again, Skinner made 2 big stops, and then the Oilers just dominated the rest of the period. It was great.
Yeah, he did a good job yesterday. I thought they just came out very well in response, and it wasn't just like McDavid and Draisaitl and Perry. I actually thought that fourth line actually played a pretty strong couple of shifts, and just overall good team effort in the first.
Noah Phillips' best game as an Oiler.
Yeah, I thought he played very well, especially being elevated up the lineup as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I will talk, again, more about the line combos and stuff like that later. But Connor McDavid opens the scoring, and Original Posar said it. He's on the verge of a supernova heater. Why do I agree with that statement? It's because he's willing to shoot the puck. And you watch him do this, and listen, who am I to critique the best hockey player this league has seen in 20 or 30 years? But God damn it, Connor, if you can do that, do it more. What are you doing?
Yeah, it is one of his annoying traits, to say the least. But this was a ripper, as Dukes would say.
as Dukes would say. Just an absolute snipe. And it's like, again, your power play will get more dangerous if teams have to start respecting that kind of a wrist shot coming from McDavid. Like, that was an absolute laser. Love to see it. It comes on their 18th shot of the game. They finally beat Jordan Binnington. So I did like on the power play, they went 1 for 3, but it felt like on every power play attempt, they had a mindset of like, let's funnel pucks. Even Draisaitl taking that one-timer there. I like that. And it was almost a little bit of like a, hey, we've thrown 17 good shots at Jordan Binnington. He stopped them. You know what? He's not stopping them all tonight. So let's keep piling them towards the net. Yeah. So I like that mindset.
And Binnington did play a pretty good game yesterday, to his credit as well. But you mentioned there about McDavid shooting more. Like, when we saw the Oilers power play at the peak of its powers was when Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was being lethal on his shot as well. Yeah. So like you said, like, if they can have two guys, like, we all know Draisaitl is going to shoot, but this year the power play's been weird. It's doing really, really well, but scoring's down for Hyman, Nuge, McDavid, and Bouchard, and they're still like top 7 or whatever it is. So if they can finally get like a second guy, which seems crazy to say, Rick would hate me if I said that about the power play, by the way. But if they can get a second guy being more lethal, I'm with you. It could be deadly.
Yeah,
it's already. But
so it's 1-0 going into the third period. Again, at that point, the Oilers had not really let the St. Louis Blues back into that hockey game at all. The power plays were 3-0 for the Edmonton Oilers. And what happens? Matthias Ekholm gets called for interference.
For hitting.
I think you can argue about whether or not he touched the puck or didn't. There is a play to be made there.
100%.
It is incredibly bang-bang. I don't see that as a penalty. And I especially don't see it as a penalty. Credit to Sportsnet for the highlights. Do we have the other two clips? No, not yet. The Hyman hit from behind. Because what drove me nuts is this goes uncalled. So now the power plays are this gets called. The power plays are now 3-1.
Yeah.
They were very clearly only going to call a penalty on the Oilers in that period because a couple of seconds later, after the power play, when it's 1-1, Leon Draisaitl gets hammered in the numbers. And because he pops up quick, there's no call. Then Zach Hyman gets hammered in the numbers. And because the Oilers don't do what the Blues do and run around and start a big brouhaha in the seconds after a big hit, the refs don't call it. It was ridiculous.
The Hyman one was wild to me. I thought it seemed so clear.
Right in the numbers.
Heavy hit from Braden Shen and just right in the numbers. Hyman, like you said, like bounced up pretty quick from it and just kept going. But like, how do you miss that? Like, it is nuts. I remember a few years ago, there was that clip that went around of McDavid getting nailed against LA, or maybe it was Anaheim, one of the two, and you can like see the ref in the vision of the shot. And that's how I felt about that one last night too. And you're right, like they were just looking for anything to even out the calls slightly.
Well, like remember the game against LA a month ago when McDavid got held, and then because Kapanen came in to stand up for him, they ignored everything else that happened afterwards in the scrum. They gave Kapanen a penalty and the original. So why only the original here? Like, the standard of officiating in the NHL is an absolute joke, and we're going to talk about it later, but like, thank you for pulling that up quickly. How is that not a penalty? His numbers are square to the boards he has the puck here. His numbers are to the boards, and that player, the more I watch it, the more pissed off I get. That player on the Blues takes 4 effing strides while looking at absolutely nothing but the blue and orange 18 on the back of Zach Hyman's sweater. That's insane.
I think, too, like, the 3 penalties that the Oilers got weren't questionable.
Yeah.
They were very clear and obvious. High stick, whatever the first one was, a hold, I think, whatever. And then the trip as well on Ekholm. It's like, you can't really call it any other way. And I think that's what's so frustrating about this call and the one prior is, like, I don't think the refs missed that much up until these 2 moments.
He's right there.
They had little impact on the game. And then all of a sudden, they just decided they didn't want to do it. They also missed one in overtime on Draisaitl, where he probably should have been called for a hold on, I think it was Robert Thomas. But nevertheless, like, it should have never have gone to overtime because the Oilers were controlling this game comfortably. Bear in mind, the Oilers completely collapsed after St. Louis scored their
That was a
first
tough
goal.
4 minutes.
Robert Thomas should have made it 3-1. Holy moly, how he missed an open net. I think any of us in this room could have scored that.
You know what the kids say, though? Puck don't lie.
Dare to dream.
Puck don't lie. So Jordan Kyrou ties it up at 1 on the power play. Then Colton Parayko gives the Blues a 2-1 lead. He is absolutely red hot right now. And again, you talked about this Oilers team falling apart. Stuart Skinner ended up having a good night, 900 save percentage, solid, made some big saves. But on this goal here, this was just Edmonton being rattled, I think, and not being able to sort of shrug off the bad officiating.
Yeah, they let it get into the heads a little bit. Just lost a lot of structure, leaving guys wide open, and like not much Skinner could have really done on either of them. I thought the penalty kill was actually pretty solid in that first goal up until right at the end. And yeah,
they had a couple of chances almost to rush back the other way. And right before the goal, they had a chance to get the puck out of the zone too.
Actually, that triggered a memory. When Jordan Binnington came out of the net, Kasperi Kapanen had the opportunity to put him under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And he kind of just peeled away. It's like, he's on the boards. I know you can't really get into much of a battle with him, but hey, maybe Binnington, who's known to kind of to lose himself a little bit in those moments, maybe he ends up holding you or something like that, and you can kind of negate the power play. I would have liked to see Kapanen be a bit more aggressive on there, and also shout out 500 game in the NHL, the most English sounding Finn I've ever heard in my entire life. That's my big takeaway from the game. Did you hear the intermission interview?
No.
Kapanen, I'm 99% sure he's never been to Finland. Just sounded, added a Canadian twang to him. Crazy.
For the Edmonton Oilers, they eventually go on, tie the hockey game. Leon Draisaitl with the goalie out, his 37th of the year. And there are so many things about this goal I love. First off, the puck movement and the poise at the blue line. You get it to McDavid, who finds his seam, and Draisaitl does that, and Corey Perry just gives it to Jordan Binnington while he's laying on the ice, which was so funny. Again, Oilers putting on pressure. Puck don't lie. Refs kind of screwed them a little bit in the period, but they kept working. They get a break with the Robert Thomas thing, like you said, and then Draisaitl buries it, does his little jig there. Nice and fired up. How many times this year do you think the Oilers have scored with their goalie out?
7.
5. They're tied for 10th in the NHL. But what's interesting, so they've scored 5 times with their goalie pulled, and the other team has only cashed in 6 empty netters.
So they've pulled him.
So they've been in the situation, you could say, 11 times this year, and they've scored 5 goals in those 11 situations.
Should have been 6 and 6.
That math isn't totally correct.
A minimum of 11.
Yeah, minimum of 11. Because there would be times like against Toronto where the goalie was out and you didn't actually score. But that goals for percentage, 45.45%, is second best in the NHL in terms of scoring versus getting scored on with the goalie out. Interesting number.
It is. The stars do show up for the Oilers quite often when they need them. And that was a big moment last night. The Oilers deserved to win that game in regulation. Didn't go that way, but they still managed to get the 2 points. Thanks to some magic.
Yeah, and then it goes to overtime. And Tyler Mulick, I see your comment there. Bush was on fire. I want to talk about him a little bit in this overtime because he was tremendous. He stops a rush back the other way, he stops the rush coming one way, which again, overtime could have ended the game, and then leads the Oilers on a charge right back up the ice. Great finish by Connor Brown. The hands by Connor McDavid are amazing. But let's not gloss over the poise by Evan Bouchard at the start of this year. That is something, man. To make that move in overtime and then to make the touch pass as well. Guys in overtime, and we see it more on other teams, I guess, than the Oilers, generally have a tendency to play very risk averse, right? You don't want to be the guy that turns over the puck. You don't want to shoot the puck and have it go back the other way. For Evan Bouchard to just hold on to this puck and then tap it to Connor McDavid, that takes a lot of skill. And Rob is in. How was Bouchard on fire? My guy, go look at the numbers and also give your glasses a little clean and go rewatch that hockey game, because when Evan Bouchard was on the ice, there was a lot of good shit happening in that game. With Bouchard on the ice, the shots at 5-on-5 were 17-5 in favor of the Edmonton Oilers. They outshot the Blues at a better than 3-1 clip when Bouch was on the ice at 5-on-5. Shot attempts 24-10. Evan Bouchard was next to McDavid and Draisaitl, third on the list of best Oilers last night. And Kale says it's such a poised touch pass. And again, this is where the Bouchard haters like Rob just totally miss the point. You ignore everything good that guy does because you don't like the 1 turnover a game or 2 turnovers every couple of games. And you zero in on those and you ignore everything else that makes him an elite unicorn talent. He is one of the best puck movers in the NHL. He is so poised with the puck at his blue line. That play there in that situation, the hands, the vision, the touch, after breaking up a 2-on-1 the other way, there are under 10 defensemen in the NHL who can do all that. And the Oilers have one of them.
The last 6 games for Bouchard, he had 2 points against the Oilers, 2 against Toronto, 1 against Detroit, pointless against Seattle, but +1, 1 point against Buffalo, 1 against Van. That is 7 in his last 6.
It's insane.
He's doing really well. Also, too, I think it's very funny on this goal. Obviously, Connor McDavid and what Bouchard did deserve a lot of credit. Great finish by Connor Brown. Like, really nice goal by Brown as well. And
Yeah.
he really went under the radar for how good that was. Also, don't know if I've ever seen him on the ice for overtime.
So
First ever overtime goal for Connor Brown, too.
I had to hustle to my curling game after this Oilers won.
Yep.
So I was standing at the door with my curling stuff, and I was watching the overtime go, and Brown scores, and then I'm like, bang, there we go, and I see the 8 on the jersey. And I quickly run, I fill up my water bottle, I'm walking out, I'm like, boom, Zach Hyman, OT winner. Because I saw the 8, and Amber was like, they're saying Connor Brown scored. And I was kind of like, I think you're wrong, Amber. There's no way. Why would he be out there? But he was, and he finished. He looked good.
Yeah, he did. He did a good job on that one. I wondered why he was out there.
Yep.
But he was there, and he did a good job of it. Finally scores next to McDavid.
Evan Bouchard, in his last 5 games at 5-on-5, the Edmonton Oilers have outscored the opposition 7-3.
That's pretty good.
Nobody sucks.
How's more excited doing?
Probably significantly worse, because guess what? I don't think you're finding a lot of defensemen who are putting up those numbers over their last 5 games.
Probably not. What's the date on that, actually? Let's find out.
I'm going to read you the scoring chances for and against percentage when Evan Bouchard's been on the ice at 5-on-5 the last 5 games.
So that is January 25th.
76%, 69%, 60%, 75%, and then he did get caved in fairness against Buffalo, 29%. But in 4 of his last 5 games, he's been on the ice for 60% more scoring chances than against. That's insane.
That is very good. He's an elite defenseman. The contract, whatever it's going to be, is going to spark conversation because he's a controversial player. And I get it. We spoke about it on the show before. Like, his mistakes are so obvious, but his great plays, I feel like, is so subtle, it's hard to really balance them out. So I understand people like Rob who are like, what has he done for me lately? But it's like, it's those small plays that if you see it again a few times, you're like, okay, yeah, that was actually really great. And hopefully one day we can just all grow to appreciate how amazing this player is for our team.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to just identify it.
Okay, there is something else I want to get into from the game last night. I guess we kind of touched on the fringes of it, but I'm going to make it my one big take for our friends over at Yeti. Crave the cold with Yeti and extend your ice time with hard-hitting gear that's built to honor the toughest sport on earth, including the Yeti Camino Carry-All Tote Bag, durable enough to carry skates, gloves, your jersey, your helmet for a trip to the ODR, also durable enough if you're someone who works outside. Yeti, it is crazy, the list of products that they have. Everyone thinks of like the coolers and the cups, but we had the chairs out in Jasper. They were unreal. They had blankets that are like, they're unbelievable.
Blankets. I did not know that.
Pretty cool. Shout out to our new friends at Yeti. I want to talk about the NHL having a game management problem, which I don't think is any secret to Oilers fans, but our friend Paul Paduti over at Daily Faceoff wrote a piece, and this is kind of the crux of it. Scoring is down in the NHL. And this is the first time in 4 years that goals per game has dipped below 6. And I think we have a chart here that we can flash up to kind of show people. So this is since the lockout. So in the salary cap era, it dipped really hard there about 10 years ago. But since the pandemic, offense has been really high at an all-time high, or I shouldn't say all-time. Highest it's been since basically the turn of the century.
Yeah.
6.21, 6.29, 6.16, and it's dropped now to 5.96, okay? Power plays are converting at their highest rate in 35 years. There are more empty net goals than at any point in NHL history. Games tied after regulation are being decided in overtime more than ever before, and goalie save percentage is at its lowest in almost 2 decades. So goalies are stopping pucks less than they have in 20 years. Power plays are converting more than they have at any point in the last 35 years, and there's more empty net goals, yet offense is down. Why does that make sense?
It doesn't.
Exactly. And if you guys can show now the power play numbers that Paul had pulled together. Power play percentage, again, the highest it's been in the salary cap era, highest it's been in 30 years. Look at the number on the right. That is power play opportunities per game. Coming out of the lockout, it was 11.7. I think everybody would agree that was too far, a bridge too far one way. Power play opportunities now down to 5.5. And I know people might be sitting there and going, and I see a comment here, the graph is deceiving. It's literally less than a goal a game. Colton, it's like 7%. It's 10%.
Yeah.
That's the difference between a 50-goal scorer being a 45-goal scorer, a 130-point guy being a 117-point guy. 7 to 10% is significant. And what I'm getting at here is if there was just a natural lull, or if this was goalies playing better or penalty kills figuring things out, this is directly correlated to officiating. And I think more than ever, refs are acting scared and they don't want to be the ones to determine the outcome of a game. And let me throw you some more numbers here. The Edmonton Oilers are 26th in penalties drawn. Criminal considering the skill that they have. They're 28th in penalties taken. To me, that is blatant game management, because if you want me to not sound like an Oilers homer for a sec, the Edmonton Oilers are not the 28th cleanest team in the NHL. You talked about the Draisaitl missed hold yesterday on overtime on Robert Thomas.
It was very obvious.
It was painfully obvious. But you know what refs are doing when they ref the Edmonton Oilers? They're sitting there and saying, well, I don't want to give the Oilers 4 or 5 power plays today or 3 power plays today because, well, then their power play might burn them. The other team's coach is going to be mad, and it'll seem like the Oilers' power play won them a game, and I gave them the game.
Yeah.
And then they sit there and go, well, I'm not going to call anything on the Oilers because if I call 2 penalties on the Oilers and they are down by a goal, then in the third I got to even it up with a minor penalty, and then they could tie up the game, and it's going to feel like I gave them a power play to tie the game. And it's not just the Oilers. The Leafs are 25th in penalties drawn, 18th in penalties taken. Bottom half of the league in both of those. The Vegas Golden Knights have the second best power play in the entire NHL, and they've been a very good power play for the last couple of seasons. They are 31st in penalties drawn per game. 31st in penalties drawn per game. One of the best teams in the NHL, who has the puck more than pretty much any other team in the league and controls the puck in the offensive zone more than any team in the NHL. They are 31st in penalties drawn per game. How are the Oilers, Leafs, and Golden Knights all in the bottom 5 or bottom 6 of penalties drawn per game? It's because refs don't want to determine the outcome. And you know what you're doing when you decide you don't want to determine the outcome and you don't call the rule book? You're determining the outcome.
Ironically, yes. A lot of top teams kind of near the bottom of the power plays drawn. I would assume if you just name 3 of them, I would assume a lot of the other teams are very much playoff teams as well. It's interesting. I mean, I think what you said makes a lot of sense.
The NHL has a blatant officiating issue, and they are not going to address it. When you watch a hockey game, what are the exciting moments? Power plays.
Yeah, a lot of it, for sure. Yeah, I don't really have anything to argue back, or not even argue back, just to add, like, could it be something to do with, like, teams getting better slightly? No, I guess not. No.
So someone asked...
Defensively getting better, perhaps?
Okay, but then that's where, again, this gets a little bit interesting. Someone said, what would be the shooting percentage over that time?
That's what I was kind of thinking, too.
It's simple. If save percentage is at its lowest over the last 20 years...
shooting percentage should be up.
Then shooting percentage is at its highest. If goalies are stopping the fewest percent of shots, that means players are scoring on the most percent of their shots. Those numbers are the inverse of each other.
I think it's interesting when you look at the Oilers side of it too. Like, it feels like the Oilers scoring is down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I know we looked at it the other day, and like when you compare it to last season, it's not really like that much different. But like, you have a guy like Hyman who had 50 last year. Was he at 18, something like that? Like, we just talked about like the power play, and like really you only have one guy who's shooting properly on it and getting it through, and it's Leon Draisaitl. Like, Bouchard's not scoring. It's a very interesting thing to look at. Paul does an amazing job looking at all this stuff that you wouldn't even think about over at Daily Face.
Oilers are 4th in scoring this year at 3.28 goals per game. Last year, the Edmonton Oilers also top 10 in scoring. They were 4th at 3.56. So they rank 4th in both, but it's 0.38 goals per game fewer. And again, Colton keeps saying, like, it's less than a goal a game. It's less than a goal a game. If this was dropping more than a goal a game, it would be like a 10-alarm bell fire for the NHL. You cannot sit there and just say it's only 7 to 10% and be like, small number. There is a problem, and it needs to be addressed.
Next question. Will it be?
No. Because and listen, Gregor made this point, and I think it is absolutely bang on. Gary Bettman does the exact same cycle all the time. There are no problems in the NHL. It's the best league. No problems, no problems. I want you to wait until we are exactly 1 year away from the CBA needing to be renegotiated, and all of a sudden there will be a shitload of problems that Gary says need to be solved.
League's a disaster.
League's a disaster.
Start on time, no one's scoring goals. Refs are too involved in games, but they're not right now.
Yeah.
Tonight, Oilers game, 7:45, Mountain. Until it gets to 7:52 and they finally drop a puck. It's going to be awesome. I cannot wait.
Anyways, And Sean says, valid points, but how do you solve it? Lots of decisions are human objectivity-driven calls. Some calls are harder to see real-time, more diving, etc. Yeah, I get it, Sean. My thing is call the rulebook. And I think the NHL has a call the rulebook problem. And you know what you do? You, in a way, and again, this will take referees having to kind of look themselves in the mirror and check their ego a little bit. You do a post-game report from a head official who sits there and goes, hey, in the final 10 minutes, this was missed, and this was missed in a one-goal game. These should have been penalties. Or this was called. They shouldn't have been penalties. Or this was called properly, but this wasn't. You do a final 10-minute report just like the NBA does, and then you know what the refs are going to do? They're going to sit there in the final 10 minutes when it's a one-goal game and go, ooh, I really don't want to be listed in that report. I want my report to look good. I'm going to do my fucking job because they don't do that. Right now, there's no accountability for officials. You get to do playoff games, which results in more money. So, like, again, there's not no accountability, but there's little public accountability for players. For refs. When players mess up, they get roasted. When coaches mess up, they get roasted. When a goalie lets in weak goals, they get roasted. When the Department of Player Safety makes a bad call, they get roasted. Zero accountability for the officials, and that's got to change.
Which we never spoke about, actually. 10 games for Ryan Hartman, which is the biggest suspension this year, I believe, right?
First time a player's been given 10-plus games for an on-ice incident since Tom Wilson in 2018.
And rightfully so, but just back on the officiating thing. So in the Premier League, I'm sure many of you might have seen they do the video assistant referee now, and it's a disaster, to say the least. But they're trying to figure out how to do it. And one thing they've started to do now is releasing the audio between the video assistant and the official on the field. And I think there's the fourth official as well. And they release it. And the conversations that they're having is now out to the public, and people do not like it at all. It makes no sense. So now they're being held accountable, and things are starting to change, and it looks like they're going to make some adjustments to it. And it's like, I think that's what people are asking. Like, Sean, I agree with what Sean said of, like, sometimes it is difficult to see, and 100%. Like, the refs they're human beings at the end of the day, but sometimes when you see, like, the Zach Hyman hit, like, come on, it doesn't take a lot to recognize what that moment was and what it should have been. But either way,
I'm with you.
It's an interesting thing that Paul pulled up.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good article. Go read it at dailyfaceoff.com. There was one more here I want to get to, and it was from McHyndry, who says, make the refs face the press. Here's the thing. The refs could have had that happen at any point over the last 10 years. They didn't want to. They couldn't handle their egos and having to face hard questions. So now you don't get to. You don't get to explain to yourself. Instead, you get a 10-minute report at the end of every game that calls out your bullshit.
I actually don't think the refs should stand in front of the media and ask questions.
I think you should have. I
do think the league needs to protect the officials in that sense, but I think the report is the way to do it. Yeah, it's a good way to do it. The report is a good way to do it. Then they don't need to come out and speak and be made a mockery of because they're a disaster.
Okay, it is a Sherwood Ford Giant game day today on the show, which means we're going to be joined by our boy Jay. First off, shout out to our friends at Sherwood Ford the Giant and the all-new Nation Valet Service. It is hockey fans helping hockey fans, and right now, the Nation Valet Service, we're taking it up a notch. When you book online at sherwoodford.ca, make sure you add into the comments, I want Nation Valet, and you're going to get yourself an Oilers Nation package. And this month, only until the end of the month, you're going to be entered into a draw to win a trip on the Nation vacation, a chance for you to come to Vegas with us. And all you got to do is use the already fantastic service from our friends at Sherwood Ford the Giant. It is a game day, which means they got some game notes. Let's hear what they have.
So Draisaitl and Bouchard have taken 44 shots in their last 3 games. I've taken about 44 sips of coffee in the last 3 hours. Clearly, they're more productive than I am. Let's go Oilers.
Tonight marks the 4th matchup between Bedard and Connor McDavid. Bedard has 4 points while McDavid only has 3. And I got my iced coffee out here, so we're all contributing to society today.
The Oilers win, McDavid scores. 16-0-2. Yeah, that seems about right. He's pretty good at this hockey thing, isn't he? I'm good at coffee.
Sherbucks. Shout out to Sherbucks, Liam.
Big shout out to Sherbucks.
Yeah, that was a good promotion.
Also, now that we have 4 producers working on the show, we can do full set changes.
That was wild.
That was like very professional and efficient.
NASCAR level, like pit crew. Yeah.
Everything got moved around, although I forgot my sign.
Oh, okay.
What a failure.
Then no one can see it. I'm glad you did that. Really elevated it.
I have it.
You're making it.
There you go.
There you go. And that's still on display.
How good that Bronco in the background was good looking.
Mm-hmm.
Saying.
You're a Bronco guy. Shout out Sherwood Ford the Giant. What did you make of the win last night? Did you get any sort of satisfaction out of watching Connor McDavid walk Broberg and Holloway? A little bit, right?
Yeah, of course. I was a little concerned when the physicality kind of elevated there.
Definitely did.
And we let it rattle us, and we weren't responding, and they got all this momentum. I'm like, what is going on? But then, we showed up. We kind of came up to that level, and then just finished strong. And although watching Dylan Holloway play for the St. Louis Blues, it just I don't know if I can let it go. Can you let it go?
It's annoying.
I don't think I can let it go.
I'm
You know who I?
Are you over it, man? He's like a factor.
He's a great player. And I wish he was an Oiler. I just can't let that linger on me.
Broberg, I'm fine with, but that just lingers on me. But what a character kind of comeback win, and also kind of now on the opposite of Dylan Holloway to poo-poo on him because he had that go-ahead goal assist. So, sorry, Dylan.
Yeah, better
Should have stayed.
Better luck next time.
I wish we kept you though.
Early vacation for Dylan this year. Done in April.
Oh, yeah. The Blues are not going to be a playoff team this year. They are. Just watching them last night, they turn over a lot of pucks.
Yeah. I think Brad Creek is beautiful at mid-April.
It actually
I know.
is a beautiful area.
It's a great spot right outside the mountains. You'll get to see it this year.
Shout out to my guy Seymour Runs from Bragg Creek.
Shout out to Seymour.
Anyways, let's get out to the Star Mechanical guest line. It is Wednesday, which means it's Frank Mechanical Day, brought to you by Star Mechanical, one of Edmonton's biggest locally owned and operated plumbing and heating businesses. They've been working within the community for over 20 years, whether it's residential, commercial, or 24/7 emergency service. They do it all, and they do it well at Star Mechanicals. We welcome in our Daily Faceoff insider, Frank Seravalli, to the show, and he's got an all-new trade targets list, also an all-new haircut. Frank, is that a fresh trim?
It is a fresh trim. Well done.
I'm really good at noticing people's haircuts.
Notice
Is that your superpower, Tyler?
Yep.
Really hate getting my hair cut because every time, this is an old Bob McKenzie thing. He told me a while ago, he pulled me aside. I think we were at a cup final or something. And he's like, stop getting your hair cut so short. It makes you look fatter. And I was like, God. So every time I get a haircut, I'm like, damn it, 2 weeks of looking extra fat on TV.
Classic Bobby Mack. Frank, I want to start with your new trade targets board. A couple of defensemen popped up on there, and they are defensemen with term. Jamie Alexiak and Connor Murphy. Do you see either of those guys as potential fits in Edmonton?
I could see both of those guys, not together, but both of them being fits separately, yes. With Murphy, there's obviously the Stan Bowman connection, and I love the idea of taking his cap hit and knocking it in half. There's a reason why the Chicago Blackhawks didn't retain on Taylor Hall on his way to Carolina. They wanted to keep that last retained salary transaction slot, and it could be used on someone like Murphy. It could be used on someone like Seth Jones. The point is they've got options. They want to try and take advantage and juice a return. And you think back to the Jake McCabe deal going from Chicago to Toronto, that paid huge dividends. And I think making a deal like the Ekholm one a few years ago really underlines the power of trading for someone with term, because he fit like a glove. And then to be able to keep that continuity year over year, I think it really helps cement your status as a contender. And just look at the Vancouver Canucks and the peril that they've been in of late. They traded and made some enormous moves last season to bring in players that they didn't keep any of them, and then had to go out in the summer and find replacements for them, which we see now they have not adequately done, which is why when you sign Vinny Desharnais and Derek Forbort and then press Noah Juleson into more action, your team flounders in the standings as a result, because you just can't find the right mix and right pieces. And by that point, when the season starts, it's too late. So there is real value in trading for players with term, and I'd include Alexiak and the size and frame that he has as someone who's also a really good fit.
Yeah, the thing for me is if you don't have your first round pick in 2025, or if you want to trade it, then you have to move your 2026 first to Philly. The point is one of your next two first round picks has to go to Philly. So if you're going to trade the other one at this deadline, I think you need to be able to sit there next February and go, hey, we don't have a first to use at the deadline, but look at how complete our blue line looks with Nurse and this new guy and Ekholm and Bouchard and Kulak still under contract and Emberson still under contract. Like, if you're going to use that first, it can't be for a pure rental. It has to be with a guy you can still have in your lineup a year from now.
What does the package look like for a Murphy type?
Well, I think it starts with a first round pick, and then you're trying to add something else to it that makes it enticing. Like, at the end of the day, Murphy still has limitations, but what you're paying a premium for is really not just the term, but the fact that it'd be only $2 million a year. Like, that's where the real value seeps in, and you're paying extra for that retainment. So, look, he's steady. He's not flashy. The one thing I really like about Murphy is that he does play a physical game and is not afraid to get in the mix. And I think some of that the Oilers could definitely use.
Yeah.
Do you think then if the Oilers were to go out and, like you said, spend a first-round pick on a Murphy or an Alexiak, they would try and add like a depth piece as well, like they did with Adam Henrique last year where they got Sam Kerrick in a deal?
Yeah, and by the way, the Adam Henrique trade, I guess, kind of worked out fine. I think the mistake was probably in bringing him back. And look, we could probably diagnose or walk through the Oilers summer you guys touched on, and not even to go there on Broberg and Holloway, but just so many other facets of it that I think the big reason why they need to go out and get a depth piece is just the erosion of speed on this team's lineup. Missing McLeod, it's not from a production standpoint, it's from a skating standpoint. And, still haven't had someone step up and really grab hold and take that 4C spot, which is why the Oilers were in the mix last week. And Stan Bowman, I think the night that he was at the University of Alberta Golden Bears game, was on the phone trying to potentially bring in someone like Drew O'Connor from Pittsburgh. So, I think that's the thought process. It's not just depth. It's a very specific, we need more speed. And that part is what really stands out to me watching this team is they've got arguably the fastest player in the world, feet, hands, brain, all in unison. But a lot of their forward group is pretty slow.
My counterpoint to the McLeod thing and Henrique is you brought back Adam Henrique, I think with the logic of like, hey, we're not losing a ton here in terms of quality at 3C, and it allowed you to get Matt Savoy, and you desperately needed a decent prospect in this system because with the way Savoy's going in Bacon, we talked to Bruce Kurlock yesterday on the show.
Of speed, by the way, like that AHL speed skating competition, that looked good.
Yeah, so I think that swap, like you bring back Henrique and then you can swap McLeod for Savoy without really taking a lot away from your actual NHL roster. And now you have this prospect you can look at and be like, okay, some youth coming in next year.
I guess. And look, Savoy, and I've read all the Bruce Kurlock reports. He does look really promising, and that's good. And I love that he's been there sort of marinating, so to speak, in Baco. But still, I mean, it's not just Henrique. It's also Skinner, and it's also Arvidsson. Like, I think we're all still waiting for Arvidsson to pop because he really hasn't done anything this year.
Falling down a lot.
Then, we've spoke about this a lot on the show this week. Like, a top six winger might be something the others look at, right? Come the deadline, or a new scoring winger.
I think you're going to have to prioritize. Like, that's why this Klingberg signing could be so big, Liam. Is if he can be that top four right shot D, then you can potentially go after a top six guy. And then you also have to figure out what is the likelihood that Evander Kane can be that impact piece. Like, he might be in-house, he might be internal. If so, I think what that allows you to be is aggressive in trying to add at the best value proposition you can find. Regardless, like position agnostic. If you can add a quality middle six winger, if you can add another, impact defenseman, whether it's speed, whatever it might be, the chessboard becomes open for you to play if you have some degree of certainty that Kane and Klingberg are what you need them to be.
Yeah. We got a comment in here from McDoust who says, and our chat's buzzing with it, so I need to ask you. He says, perfect segue to Marchand, top 6 guy. Can you throw some cold water on that for me? Because I think the rumor's getting a little out of hand in oil country.
Yeah, I don't understand where some of these things come from. Like, I mean, as best I can tell, like the generation of this is like quite literally no different than all of the mock deals that we did on our show today, which is basically just like spit out anything you want, who says no. But because it kind of came in some like reporting fashion that somehow we need to address this, which, okay. I don't see the Boston Bruins trading Brad Marchand, period, full stop. Is there a place or a position where the Bruins get to this season and they feel like we're so far out of it and doesn't really make sense, as much as he's been a heart and soul guy, for us to re-sign Brad Marchand to buy the last few seasons of his career? Yeah, I could see that, but I don't think they're there yet. And beyond that, I don't really see him being a fit for the Oilers. Do you?
I think it's interesting because he would give you some jam, and you talked about adding more scoring. But the other side of it is like, again, you bring in these top 6 guys, and it kind of happened with Henrique. I'm not comparing the two, but like Henrique comes and everyone's underwhelmed at the production. And it's like, well, yeah, no shit. He's not going to score like he did in Anaheim because he doesn't get power play time here. And again, he's playing in a third line role. Marchand, I guess you would staple with one of McDavid or Draisaitl, so you'd get the 5-on-5 production, but the power play production goes away.
Well, that's what I was going to say, though. I think the biggest key for any trade deadline acquisition is setting proper expectations internally. I've said this all along. You can't go out and trade for Adam Henrique and think that he's going to be anything more than a 3C. That's not the thought process. That cannot be the thought process. I think the Vancouver Canucks are going to run into the same exact problem with Marcus Pettersson. You can go trade for Marcus Pettersson, but if you think he's going to come in and be a top-end defenseman for you, that's not the case. I know you know the player, but Marcus Pettersson is a 4-5. And I've taken a ton of heat for saying that of late, but that's the reality. That's what Marcus Pettersson has been paid to be. It's all those things. So if you think that you're going to find a guy and then elevate him and turn him into something that he's not, it's not going to happen.
Especially in the middle of the season, which is a total different, an added wrinkle to this.
Obviously, we got the news of the cap increasing over the next few years, in the last couple of weeks, and whatever it was. Do you think we could go into almost a super team era of the NHL?
Weird way to ask about ranting into the Oilers, but I respect it.
Do I think we could get to a super team era of the NHL? I think it's unlikely, because we just had one of the super teams dismantle itself out of concern of paying those guys. And we see another team in Toronto who's at a crossroads with another one of its superstars. So I tend to think not, but if I were, or someone else was an ultra aggressive GM, I would 100% be trying for it, because I do think that some teams have shown that there is a model of success there. Like, look at the way the Vegas Golden Knights manage their cap. They've got stars, no middle class, and grinders, or guys that are on low-level contracts that have perfectly outkicked their deal. The Colorado Avalanche won a cup with McKinnon, Makar, Rantanen, and yes, McKinnon was still on a value deal, so maybe that skews things. But the Tampa Bay Lightning, cap-wise, have been more constructed similar to the Vegas Golden Knights than other teams. So I do think there's a window of possibility, but I think because of the market conditions and the fact that every team is trying to get a piece of something, that it just kind of limits it and trends it more toward parity than anything else. Does that make any sense?
Makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, like, what
if Leon still had 2 more years in his deal,
Yeah,
and
maybe
Connor
that
still had
changes
3 more
things.
years in his deal.
Yeah.
That would open up a window for a super team, but
Yeah.
I don't think any team would be in that situation.
Well, the way I was looking at it from like an Oilers perspective is like, yes, they obviously are going to pay Bouchard, McDavid, Draisaitl, but then they have guys like Ekholm, who's still on a decent deal, Hyman on a pretty good deal, and Nuge as well. Like, they've managed to lock those guys in through this little bit of an era. Like, I wondered if they would be able to get someone better than that, I guess.
It's pretty easy. Don't pay Bush. And
Oh, shut up. We're not doing that.
Well, I was just going to say, and not to be that guy this week after seemingly everyone has piled on Bouchard this week, but I think mission critical for the Edmonton Oilers this summer is making sure you do whatever you can to have Evan Bouchard's deal not be 8 figures.
Yeah. Get him at, I mean, I would do anything under 10, and I think it's a win when you look at the way the cap's going.
But that's what it has to be. Like, I think when you start to creep over that, I think you're starting to lose. Like, at some point along that deal, there's a chance that he's closer to Nurse level impact than more than that.
Yeah, that's fair. When you look at the percentage of the cap when Nurse signed his deal, if you take that percentage and apply it to what it'll be in 2 seasons when the cap's up to 113, it's a $10.25 million player. So that, to me, you got to be under that number. So I agree with you. I agree with you on that. The other thing, too, just to give a take on the Oilers and the super team thing, maybe there's like, they sign Arvidsson, they sign Skinner, they spend $7.5 or $7 million on these 2 guys, and here we are, February 5th, going, they might need to add a top 6 winger. Maybe this front office just sits there and goes, you know what? Screw getting these middle-of-the-road guys. Let's do a more Vegas model of $1 to $2 million guys in the bottom 6, and let's not spend 7 on an Arvidsson or a Skinner. Let's just go spend 9 on someone and know it's going to work.
I mean, I think that's the preferred method every time, but those guys rarely make it to market. And what you end up getting yourself into is signing guys that are closer to mid-tier guys in that pay range, and you end up regretting it. Yeah. You end up with Lindholms or Zadorovs, or pick another mid-range NHL player, not a star, that, you know, this summer it'll end up being Brock Nelson, or pick, you know, maybe he's a bad example because he's a little bit older, but think about what the free agent class looks like. You really have to avoid paying the mid-tier guy.
And that's a good point. Like, someone might pay Brock Besser, and this might sound dumb, but keep in mind where the cap's going. Someone might pay Brock Besser $8.5 million this summer because
he's already making 6.6. He's making 6.65, and he has a 40-goal season under his wing. Like, I'd say 8.5 is the minimum. I'm thinking with the cap increases, Brock Besser's in the low 9s.
Minnie will be happy to pay that.
They have all that dead money coming off. Last one, Frank, I wanted to throw your way. Defenseman with term, who maybe won't cost you all that much. What do you make of the Carson Soucy idea in Edmonton? Is there a player who just needs a change of scenery? Like, he's grizzled, he plays physical, but he's only 30. This isn't a 35-year-old.
The pride of Irma, Alberta. He is... So the situation is the Canucks sent out a memo earlier this week to the league letting them know that he is available. The issue, or not an issue, is Carson Soucy has a full no trade. Admittedly, he has not played very well this season. He understands that, but he does want to see if he can give it a week or so, another 10 days, maybe until Quinn Hughes is back, to see if he can ramp his game up and be a solution for the Canucks. So I think he's asked the Canucks for a little bit of time to find that, and it's his right with the no trade clause. When it comes to the Oilers, I don't think they have interest. I think at one point they did. It becomes a money game, and then if you're bringing in Soucy, you're probably not making any other acquisitions. And I think the way that he's played this year, they've wanted him to perform at a higher level if that was how they're going to take themselves out of the game.
Fair enough.
I have a really, really quick one, Frank. And I know we've basically gone through every position on the Oilers right now, but the one that is just like the top of conversation for so many people, especially after the Toronto game, was the goaltending. We've kind of spoke about it, that there's not really a market out there. Can you just give us some insight on what the Oilers may be thinking in this regard?
Yeah, I haven't gotten a sense from the Oilers yet as to whether or not that's a position that they'd like to improve on. My guess would be, having not asked the question, that given all the other things that we've talked about on the wish list, that it would probably be a fourth or fifth option. But that said, I think this is a really unique year because there are so few teams actually looking for goaltending help that you might be able to add someone that could potentially provide some insurance or at least a good feeling for you and your team, most importantly, with a mid to late round pick. Like I think you could, just have someone take money off your books or whatever it might be. You could have a team this year that says, hey, we know we're not getting anything for him, but we're happy to move on and even just clear a roster spot to give another guy a chance to show what he can do this year to close out the year. This might be the year that you could truly find a bargain basement option for you that perhaps just makes you feel a little bit better when you're sleeping at night.
Fair. Frank, we kept you a long time, so we appreciate it. Thanks for doing this.
All good. See you guys.
There you go. There goes Frank Mechanical, Star Mechanical guest line. Trade targets. Frank keeps updating them. And also today on DFO Live, we had him break down fan-submitted trade requests, and it was really, really good. Also, someone talked shit about him in the YouTube chat, and Frank broke the Mikko Rantanen trade before anybody else. So put some respect on his name.
And the entire Seattle Kraken.
Whole roster.
We forget.
Yeah.
We call it Frank Seravalli Day.
All right, let's get to a couple of things here to wrap up the show. Let's do our betting challenge for Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Why do I have a big smile on my face as we start our betting segment? I had the bet of my life last night.
Why don't you put it in this show? You would be light years ahead of Liam.
So
have the courage.
It would have been a big.
If I would have hit that on the show, it was crazy. So I was sitting there, $10 in my account, made my other bets for the game, including my game day challenge bet. And I was like, what should I do? And I looked, I was like, man, Draisaitl's had at least 6 shots in back-to-back games. Bouchard's had 6 shots in back-to-back games. I was like, what if I same game him? Same game parlay, Bouchard 6 shots, Draisaitl 6 shots. Was 110-1, and I cashed it. $10 into $1,100.
A huge win. Congratulations.
That is, like I said, if you had the courage
I know.
to put it in this game, especially to prove Liam's system wrong.
Yeah.
Big swings only. Bet with your heart.
Fair enough.
Responsibly.
Let's get to the do we have an updated standings board? Because I also hit my game day betting challenge one yesterday, which will help me in the standings. I'm almost above.
Oh, sorry, that is above. I've just forgot to take out the minus.
Oh, really?
I'm just so used to putting minuses next to you guys' units.
I'm above.
That is plus 0.7 units.
there we go.
J
I'm up.
minus 21.7.
Hey, I got a same game parlayer that'll help you. It'll get you out of it.
I got a 30-something to 1 tonight.
All right, let's get into them. My picks for tonight. Liam also hit his yesterday, by the way.
Yeah,
McDavid 2 points, puck line over 6.5. Bing, bang, boom. 3-legger plus 320. I think Pickard gives up a couple tonight. He usually does. Come on. I think the Oilers win this game like 5 or 6-2. McDavid 2 points, easy money plus 320. Liam, what do you got?
So I went with McDavid 2 points, Oilers money line, and Jeff Skinner point. Now, we haven't seen the lines today, but Jeff Skinner,
last night.
he did, and he snuck into the top 6.
He did.
With Draisaitl and McDavid at
he
a couple of
looked good last
shifts.
night.
So I'm hoping he can stay there, but you can guarantee he'll be a healthy scratch. So we'll see. Hopefully this is one plus 400 for me. It's a big one of my big ones of the year.
Frank's speed comment is valid because you can see it in some points, and you kind of saw it a little bit last night. But anyways, I'm going all goal scorers. Mm-hmm. I should have also added...
This is 35-1.
Yeah. I also should have added Chicago to score first.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
they've
for
done it
pure
both,
chaos.
yeah.
So Connor Bedard to score because he's Connor Bedard and he seems to score against us. Oh, Teravainen's back with him, isn't he?
He did. And
Oilers killer.
Last time you said that, most goals and points he has against any team is the Oilers.
Oh, I forgot to add that. There should be a Teravainen component to this.
I'll give you the break.
Okay.
Usually we say no edits, but so you got.
I that's my brand. The Teravainen's an Oiler killer.
Okay, Jay, you're adding 4-legger, 120-1, Jay.
Well, yeah, let's do it. So we're going Connor Bedard to score, Zach Hyman to score, Corey Perry to score. Is he still on the top line?
We don't know.
We'll see. And the Oiler killer himself, Teuvo Teravainen.
He's gonna hit this shit, and we won't be able to catch him the rest of the year.
I think
120-1.
I think Jay will work himself back down again.
Dude, there's only like 30.
so many games, man.
He would be guaranteed if he hits this to be at no worse than plus 70 units.
Well, we'll be swinging. If
Yeah, and it's, 4-2, 5-2 game.
Yeah.
I'd be happy if you did that. I'd be more than satisfied.
Would you?
Do you know what? You've tried so hard this year to do it.
You tried so
to
hard.
finally get one.
This is what I do. I did it last year.
And you try every
And
time
I
you
won
do it.
last year. Do you recall?
Well, I changed my strategy this year.
Oh, okay.
Look at me.
You're having a great season.
I am 500 on the season.
You're having a
on my
ho-hum
record.
season. Up 12 units.
Yeah.
Like,
good work.
People dream of that.
Not me. I love it.
Fair. But I'm just a 101 winner away from destroying everyone.
So close.
Fair. All right, let's get to our lineup report for tonight, brought to you by Booster Juice. Download the Booster Rewards app today to find the location nearest you and refresh and re-energize with delicious smoothies, drinks, and food that will power you through the day. Chicago tonight, this is their lineup. Top line, Connor Bedard, 4 goals, 7 points in his last 10 games. Donato and Landon Slaggert put a finger up every time there's a name you don't recognize.
Slaggert scored in 7 seconds the other day against Florida.
All right. Didn't even know he was a guy. Dickinson with Mikheyev and Teravainen, the noted Oilers killer. The Teravainen's most points per game in his career is against the Oilers, correct? We did that last episode.
Allegedly,
Yeah.
yes.
Lucas Reichel with Craig Smith, Pat Maroon. Third line. Frank Nazar, first-round pick. I'm actually excited to get eyes on him tonight. Tyler Bertuzzi and Nick Foligno on either wing there. Deep pairings tonight, Alec Martinez with Seth Jones. Alex Vlasic, I think one of the more underrated players in the NHL, with Connor Murphy, maybe a future Oiler. TJ Brody with Ethan Del Mastro. And the expected starter tonight for the Chicago Blackhawks is Arvid Soderblom, who comes into tonight with great numbers, a .935 save percentage and a 2.03 goals against average.
In how many games?
He has played, I think, just a couple because he was hurt.
So Soderblom his brother plays on Detroit.
Oh, sorry. Those are in his last 5 games. His season numbers are .909 and a .289.
Okay. But last season, he has like the worst statistical season by a goalie ever, I'm pretty sure, right?
.880 save percentage last year.
I'm sure that was well. For however many games he played. But his brother plays on Detroit. Mm-hmm. He was a massive fella.
Big centerman, yeah.
Yeah. They say their last names differently. Jack said he asked both of them how to say it, and they both said it differently. Doesn't make any sense.
One probably accepts the North American butchering of it, and one wants the traditional pronunciation.
Mm-hmm. I would think so, yeah. But interesting. Pick a
Very
side.
interesting. Oilers lineup tonight. We don't know what's happening. What would you do? Give me your top 6 tonight. Like, this is what they have on
Keep
DFO.
Corey Perry up there. That's a good move.
I would swap Skinner and Arvidsson. And I'd put Colson on the 4th. I'd go Pods, Philip Kapanen, Arvidsson, Janmark Brown, and then I'd do Skinner with Nugent-Hyman.
I think that third line is actually the 4th line last night. It was just a bit flipped. But, yeah, I think Arvidsson and Skinner would what I would move around.
Yeah, you got to give Skinner a chance. Like, he looked motivated last night.
He did. There was a clip of him on the bench.
Defensive players.
So Skinner didn't play a ton early on, and Tom Gazzola sent out the clip, and they showed it on the broadcast. And you can kind of lip read, and Skinner was kind of like, F this, man. Like, this is effed up. And then he went out there after that and was just lights out the rest of the game. And it was almost like he had enough moment. So
maybe the switch is flipped. Like, he was, and defensively.
So good.
Look at this.
He was a
He might have saved a goal there.
Well, geez. Robert Thomas. Wow.
Yeah.
What a night. Also, shout out, first star of the game, post for both teams.
Yeah. Here's another one. Like 3-4 stick lifts that prevented scoring chances by Jeff Skinner in this game. That's crazy.
Yeah. So
reward that. Reward that.
Well, that's like, do we have, like, is he awoken?
Maybe. That's what I mean. Like him sitting on the bench being like, fuck this. I think it snapped something in him.
I'm with him. I think he's been treated kind of unfairly.
I think tonight will be the determining factor in it.
Especially since I'll bookmark it like the first time he was healthy scratched.
Maybe the message is finally hit home.
Maybe it is, yeah. But like at the same time, like the offense he's shown that he can bring should be enough to elevate him and give him like that extra bit of leash. And I think it's unfair.
And he wasn't puck hogging too much. He was distributing last night.
Yeah.
And Victor Arvidsson just falls down all the time.
Victor Arvidsson.
There was that play on the power.
Such high hopes on Arvidsson.
There was that play on the power play yesterday. There was no one within a 6-foot radius of him, and he had the puck, and he just toe picked and fell. And I was like, "What are you? What?" Anyways,
Not my cup of tea.
Well, he's battling a back.
Oh
Right.
my God, he came back in the playoffs last year. He should be fine.
Yeah,
by
but
now.
dude, back injuries. Like I'm not like back injuries are a lingering difficult situation.
So go on LTIR for the rest of the year. Let us use your cap space.
I'm not. Like, I'm just trying to. I'm trying to justify it. And you're right. Maybe go on LTIR. Maybe you're too banged up, bro.
I agree. It's definitely something that might still be bothering him. I think it's one thing.
They linger.
He missed the start of last season. He didn't like go out at the end of the year. He didn't play in and come back. Like he came back in like early March, played, and then at this time, like it shouldn't be that bad. I don't think. But he did go out with
Full summer of being healthy to rehab it.
Yeah, I mean, not ideal for sure.
You don't understand back injuries. Then they can linger and take time.
Then why the hell did the Oilers sign him?
Well, that is a good question.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more medical research. Like I have to think there's something hurting him because he's not the same guy.
Yeah,
like he was better. He was better last year.
Yep, he scored 6 goals in 18 regular season games last year.
That right now.
Oh my God, that's a 30-plus goal pace. Matthew, Tyler, would you trade Arvidsson instead of Skinner? There is a better chance that Arvidsson is moved by the deadline than Jeff Skinner.
He has no trade protection.
Because he has no trade protection, yeah. And I think a team would take a shot on his
Send him
reputation.
back to Nashville.
Sure, if they want him. Let's wrap up the show with some keys to victory brought to you today by our friends at Oodle Noodle. You can win your way into the nation vacation by visiting any of the Edmonton and area Oodle Noodles. And here's the thing, no purchase necessary. You get an entry just by walking in the door and then treat yourself to some delicious Oodle Noodle. And what do you get? A second entry.
Damn.
It's beautiful. You get fed. You get a chance to come to Vegas with us. And right now, Oodle Noodle, they have a dynamic duo deal on. It's their Bombay butter chicken and a green onion cake for just $17.95 in-store only. Again, the list of reasons to go to Oodle Noodle tonight on game day just keep racking up. Shout out to our friends at Oodle Noodle. Shout out to the Nation Vacation, which is starting to sell out.
Yeah, there's only a few spots. Just funny, just in the last couple of weeks, it really moved again. So if you're interested, I would probably do one of two things: go to Oodle Noodle for a chance to win, and if you don't want to roll the dice, secure your spot right now.
Secure your spot right now with another friend. Talk to another couple of friends, and then when you win your way in, you can all split the cost.
All 4 of you go to Oodle Noodle, buy 2 packages.
That's 8 entries.
Yeah, 8 entries.
You're laughing. Keys to victory tonight. I'm going to say it. Stomp on them early. Yesterday against the Blues, you come out of the gates, outshoot them 13-3 in the first period. If you do that against the Hawks tonight, you'll be up 2 or 3-0, and this thing will be over before it even starts. Hit them early, take them out of it. This is a very, very fragile Hawks team.
Yeah, let's just beat them up. We need like a slump buster type night. Like last night was too close, and it easily could have gone the Blues' way if Robert Thomas just was remotely dialed with his shooting. That was just... It seemed like the hockey gods were intervening. Last night, so we got lucky. So we need to beat up on a team. So make Chicago your punching bag.
Yeah, I agree. It needs to be Chicago, but I'll say something similar, I guess. I just think, like you said, Ty, like if you can come out and have like a really hot start, like if they have the start they did yesterday against Chicago, this game will be out of reach before Chicago.
That's what I'm saying.
Third line has been on the ice.
Unless they start the third line.
Semantics.
Didn't consider that.
Connor Bedard in his 120th or 121st career game tonight.
Wow.
I decided to quickly look into how that stacks up to Connor McDavid's first 120 career games. Do we have the board here that showcases that bad boy? It's actually a little bit closer than I thought it would be, Connor.
Really?
But
Oh, that's gonna be a runaway.
It is, but it's not like McDavid's doubling him up. McDavid's at like 136 career points, or was in his first 120 career games. It's a 30-point gap in 120 games, which isn't as big as I thought it'd be. The plus minus is hilarious.
Goals are, and Bedard's known for scoring, and the fact he's not ahead of him on goals.
Yeah.
There was that quote the other day from Messier.
68.
He's talking about Bedard and just like his defensive plays, and he's like, he made a bad defensive play. I can't remember exactly what it was. And then immediately after he got put on the power play, and I understand you're in that spot of like he's your best offensive weapon by a million miles. But Messier was basically saying, like, what kind of message does that send to your team? Like, I'm sure he was like error for a goal or something like that.
Here,
you kind of go, I understand why. What's our head coach called? He's a European fellow.
yeah,
isn't he?
Anders Sorensen.
That's the one.
What I would like, I don't think you can do that with Connor Bedard, because then I think it turns to Connor Bedard sitting there and going, oh, well, the team around me is junk. So
Yeah,
you're
I
going to start
agree.
punishing me for not playing the right way? Build the team the right way.
Connor Bedard, third, tied for second on the team in goals.
Who's first?
Tyler Bertuzzi, 17.
Okay.
Ryan Donato, 15.
Good for him.
Tied with Connor Bedard.
Yeah, pending UFA, they'll get some for him at the deadline if they want to. All right, that is a wrap on today's edition of the show, a Sherwood Ford Giant Game Day edition of the show. Before we wrap up, got to give some love to our friends at Sherwood Power Sports and Marine as well, right in the heart of Sherwood Park, just down the road from Sherwood Ford, the Giant home of the $50 biweekly ATV. They can get you on a boat next summer for as low as $105 biweekly, whether it's motorcycles, quads, e-bikes, boats. They have a service department that can do it all. They got all the accessories you need as well. Shout out to Sherwood Power Sports and Marine and Sherwood Ford, the Giant. Gentlemen, thank you. Frank Seravalli was great today. Everybody in the YouTube, you were awesome. We'll be back tomorrow, noon Mountain Time. Enjoy the game. We'll see you then. Oil up.